Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Motherhood. 1 minute, you're mom of the year.
I love you, Mommy.
Then the next, not so much. From bath time to bullying, from potty training to puberty, parenting is full of challenges. But one thing is for certain, you are not alone. Welcome to Modern Mom Probs. I'm your host, author, mother, parenting expert, Tara Clark. Join me while we tackle today's modern mom problems. Welcome back to another episode of Modern Mom Probs. I'm your girl, Tara. If you like what we're doing here on the show, please be sure to give us a review and leave a rating. That would mean the absolute world to me. If you have any questions, if you ever want to reach out to me, feel free to DM me on Instagram, at Modern Mom Probs, or you can email me at tara@modernmomprobs.com. I love to hear from you, and I would love to hear your ideas for new show episodes or any new guests that you'd like to hear, because I am all ears and I am all yours. Today, we're going to be talking about the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory that they had released a few months ago. And I am joined by Amy Mockbee and Emily Boucher. The two of them have been friends for 25 years. They're both educators. They are moms of one. Emily has 5 children. Amy has 3 children. So between their children and educating children for the last 25 years, they really have their fingers on the pulse of modern parenting. They also work together in a company called Work and Play, which does parent coaches, parent workshops, teacher workshops. And I really wanted to pick their brains about this U.S. Surgeon General advisory, which had come out stating that modern parents are stressed. And it's not like we didn't know that, but it was extraordinarily validating to hear it. So I'm going to bring on Emily and Amy. We're going to chat about it. So ladies, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited that both of you are here this morning. So I feel like there's a lot that we could talk about with all of this. But before we jump into that, let's do a little bit of introductions. So, Amy, I'll start with you. I like to do things alphabetically, so I'll start with Amy.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Work and Play.
Okay, yeah, happy to. So I started Work and Play with Emily in 2020. But before that, rewind several years, decades, and Emily and I met in New York City. We were both teachers and taught kindergarten, first grade, preschool. We've taught lots of different things. But back then, before we had kids, before we had spouses, we just loved talking about raising kids and how we were teaching kids and about child development. And then we had kids and everything we thought we knew went out the window. We were not the experts we thought we were. And so we started talking about that and kind of talking through everything. We were just best friends from the start. And we talked through the wins, the losses, the messy stuff. And we kept teaching, we kept raising kids, we kept having kids. Emily had 5 children. I have 3 children, getting dogs, all the things. And as we were talking, we have these conversations, whether we figured stuff out or not. We kept saying, we should have recorded that. Like, we need to be talking to parents. We need to be talking this. Parents don't have this with each other. And the more we taught and the more we knew families, we realized a lot of parents really felt really isolated. Like, they didn't have the community. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have someone to call. Like, I had Emily and Emily had me. So finally in 2020, when everything stopped, we were like, this is the time. Like, we're going to start this. And we started Work and Play, where we really were starting working with young families, but it's grown from there to work with teachers, to work with families who have many age children. We have small groups where we work with parents and build community with them. We really share expertise about child development. And I'm still teaching. So I teach 3-year-olds. I'm a preschool teacher. And Emily has been a director. She can talk more about that. She's taught and she's doing lots of other things too. But we're very much entrenched in the world of schools and also parenting. So we are way in it with everyone in our work with Work and Play.
Awesome. You are in the trenches with the parents.
Oh, yeah. We're in it.
So, Emily, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Emily, and Amy, that was a really good job telling our story. You're getting really good at that. Yeah, and I met Amy back in the 90s in Manhattan, and like what Amy said, I actually met her weeks like after I met my husband. I didn't know that at the time. So anyways, I always say they're completely on equal footing. Like they're like
cool.
the same.
Both been in the picture equally as long.
And he knows that. She often knows like really big things before he does. So, I think Amy did a great job of explaining who we are. I have been teaching. I'm kind of excited about the fact that I've been teaching as long as I've been an administrator. And I've gone back and forth a little bit, which is pretty unusual. And I feel like that's given me a great perspective on being on the teacher side and the administrator side. Amy's right. I think we thought we knew it all before we had our kiddos. And you've been there, Terry. You just I always tell the story when at workshops of like holding my first one, baby Pen, and Amy was there and just looking at her like, she's never going to be one of those dirty, bad kids over there, right? Like
transforming children who screams in the street.
Like that's never going to happen to her. She's always just going to be right here. And of course, you know what happened, Tara.
Yeah.
So
I think every mother thinks that.
Oh, you just
every
hold them
first
like
time
that's
mother
just not going to happen to you.
It's never going to happen.
It does.
And it does. Of course it does.
Totally. So I think that's why we started this. And I think the really big piece of it is that we felt like we wanted to really talk about it from an educator's point of view and from a parent's point of view. But yeah, I live in New Jersey. I've got 5 kiddos who are old now. The oldest is 23 and the youngest is 11, and some dogs. And I was a director out here for a few years, and now I'm consulting at a few nursery schools and doing work and play. So
I love that. What do you think is the most rewarding part of being an educator?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it.
I think, oh gosh, I love being an educator. I mean, in so many ways, being an educator, I think Amy would agree with this. Being a teacher, being a director is so much easier than being a parent.
Is it because they go home at the end of the day?
Yeah, they're not yours. So it just feels so different. I feel like you have more, and I know we're going to get into this. I hope we do. You have so much more confidence.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I went to school, I got a master's. I've been doing this for a long time. I have this wisdom. I'm going to help these teachers. I'm going to help these parents. I'm going to help these kiddos. But when it's your own kid, it's not there like that. So, I mean, and that's something Amy and I are working on with parents, is trying to build that up, that confidence up, so that parents can have that gut, go with their gut feeling sometimes and follow it. But I think I love being with children. I mean, I always say this, I'm a child myself. I'm a big fan of looking back at your own childhood. And I think that makes you a better parent. So being around children just makes me happy. And honestly, I literally mean it. Like, I love being outside. I love play. I love being with children. So I think that's what drew me to it. And I find it really rewarding, those connections that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm a big kid too. I always say that. My son knows that. I think I'm a bigger kid than even he is, because I know my mom was a big kid. And so I think she sort of instilled that childlike wonder in me. And I love being with kids. Although I only have one child, I do love children, and I love being with children too. So I see you, Emily.
But, right. And I think, if you're a big kid and you're a parent, I think it'll get in. Your son will be like you too, even when he's a teenager and he's looking at you like you're crazy, like it's going to get into him, like.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think so. No, I do. I do. I think so. Yeah. So I wanted to bring you both on today because you are so involved working with families, working at the school level. So you really have your fingers on the pulse of modern parenting. And recently, the U.S. Surgeon General released an advisory about the stressors of modern parenting. And I want to have a conversation about that with both of you. It's interesting because this advisory came out probably several weeks ago, maybe several months ago. And for whatever reason, and I don't know, I'm remiss to have said, like, I didn't actually have like an episode just dedicated to that by itself. And I'm like, what? How did I miss that? I did some social media posts about it, but I didn't do like a dedicated podcast episode because probably all of my podcast episodes are inherently related to that. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why I didn't have like a dedicated episode, because I think they're all tinged gently related to what they were talking about. So I'm going to go with Amy on this one. Do you want to talk a little bit about the advisory, and then we can kind of break it down and talk about modern parenting problems?
Yeah. So what the advisory basically said was what we literally, Emily and I called each other. We're like, oh my gosh, it's us. It's us.
Thank God.
They're shining a spotlight on what we've been saying, like what we all know, right? It's that parenting is really stressful, that there is like a lot of stress put on parents, that we are in danger, right? There's an advisory literally about our mental health, about our well-being, about
physical health,
how much we're taking on as parents, and that, it's very hard to find a resolution to any of it. It just keeps going. There's so much information, the way we're expected to parent, the demands we put on ourselves, the pace of the world, that this is something that is really starting to show in our parent population. And that's a problem. And so that's why we love this advisory, that it was like, hello, like, let's just own this and say this is a real thing. And in some ways, I think for us, it felt like not only gave us a little boost of like, yes, this is what we've been saying, but also just confirmed what parents are already feeling, and maybe just reassured them that they're not the one, the outlier, right? This is a really hard time to be a parent. It's always been a hard job being a parent. It's always been very complicated, but we're in this unique moment in time where it's unlike any other generation, right? We have all this information right at our fingertips. We have a lot of people, a lot of noise coming at us with advice on how to do it, or the right way, the wrong way. And a lot of times what we talk about is how parents and actually teachers are we lump them in there too, because they're really raising children too with you, that we all feel like we're doing it wrong most of the time, whether it's outright somebody telling us we're doing it wrong, or in our own mind saying like, I really am not doing it right. I didn't make it to the Halloween parade, or I didn't do this way. I didn't do whatever thing your neighbor did, your friend did, somebody posted online. And so this is a real different kind of burden that's on us that maybe wasn't on parents even a generation ago. Because even 10 years ago, I mean, we've said this, Emily, that the children we're teaching, the parents that we're working with, they're totally parenting differently, and the children have not changed. They're developing exactly the same as they always have. But the world they're in is different, and the parents they have are different, right? The parents have a lot of, they're doing a lot more reflecting on themselves. Sometimes they're talking about it, sometimes they're not. But this is, I think, an opportunity for parents to go beyond their home, beyond their wall, beyond what they're thinking of themselves, beyond what's on social media, and connect with other parents and other professionals to feel better and feel like I'm doing something that's important, and it's hard, and I can get the support I need. And just letting people do that. That's what we took from it the most. Would you say, Emily, we want to add to what I was saying?
Totally. And by the way, Tara, I looked it up right before we got on, but this article, I mean, the Surgeon General thing came out in the last day of August, I think, or August 20 something. And it didn't get a lot of press right off the bat. Like, people were big surprise, right? Like nobody was really paying attention to it. And then I think once, people started like posting more stuff about it, but that's just to me another example of how much, like, this Surgeon General sees it, but how much people are not really understanding that we are in this crucial moment, I think, in time in parenting where, like Amy said, I think parents helping each other, talking to each other, parents and teachers talking to each other is really, it's crucial. It's crucial. And it's delicate too, because I often I run with women in the morning and I'm constantly like talking about parenting, and they always say like, but we don't want to do the work. Like, why do we have to do the work? And I'm like, well, it's just tiny things. Do you know what I mean? It's like tiny little things you can peel back. Like, if you're stressed all week, then your kid's going to see you stressed all week, right? So like, try to find a time to like sit on the couch with your kid. One tiny thing, or if you feel like you should work on giving your kids more independence, which is something that none of us are very good at, right? Then let's figure out a way. Like, can you take your kid for a walk to town and see if, and walk them back and then let them try it, but like baby steps. I'm sure with the Halloween thing is a great example of like, which year do you let them go out on their own and how far can they go and, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's not, I think some parents get a little upset because they're like, but wait, I want to just keep doing things how I'm doing them, or it feels like they're being judged. But it's just little baby steps. I think that's what we need to be working on.
Yeah. I think it was so validating to see the advisory come out because it's something that I've been speaking about for a long time. The people in my parenting community have been speaking about for a long time. Other parenting content creators were like, yes, 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 yes. This is everything we've been talking about. And to see that it was put out there on such a macro level that it was acknowledged by the government of all things, essentially, was so validating.
So validating.
It was just like, oh, okay, it's not just us. Sometimes you think that you're so insular speaking about these issues, whether it's the mental load of motherhood, which is a huge one, right? Or all of the other points. I tend to have sort of like my 5 talking points on modern mom probs and what they are. And I say that it's lack of an in-person village, it's loneliness, it's technology, social media comparison, the mental load of motherhood. And to hear that broadcast much larger outside of myself was so wonderful. And you're like, yes, 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 yes.
Well, plus I'm like the kind of the historian nerd between the two of us. Like I love that, looking back, I'm just obsessed with looking back at the different time periods of what parenting looked like. And actually, well, part of the reason we started Work and Play is I used to say to Amy, like my grandmother in the 50s, like we were really close. And she used to tell me she raised 5 kids in Ohio. And she used to tell me about her day to day. And there were so many pieces of it that I found myself like being jealous of because, which is so funny because I was working, she didn't work and, like all those differences, but it really, I don't know, it got me thinking like she had this community. And there wasn't
I want
so
to
much
hear
judging.
about grandma's day. And it wasn't judging. That's true. If anything, it wasn't judging. It was more like they were working together to raise the kids. Because if a child, and I'm using this as an example, if a child misbehaved somewhere, then it was okay for the neighbor to sort of like correct them in their behavior. And nowadays, like you just simply don't see that. And I don't know whether that's good or bad. I'm not making judgment on that. I'm just saying that historically that seemed to be the case. I know that my grandmother, so my mom's mom, and I know this because my mom told me stories about it of her upbringing, would send them outside. And I say them, meaning my mother and her brothers, all day, right from the morning. And maybe this was not during school days, obviously, but let's say it was during the summer. She would send them outside from 9 o'clock in the morning and they would be gone all day until the streetlights came home. And that's when they knew they had to go. To the point where my mother told me that one time when she was a little kid, I can't believe I'm saying this publicly, but I'm going to say it. My mom, I think it was the winter, and she peed in her pants because she didn't go back home inside. Oh my God. So, like, again, I don't know if that's, a good or bad thing. And maybe I think she got stuck in her snowsuit, and the snowsuits were big back then. It reminds me of the movie A Christmas Story, and he was like walking like a starfish in the snowsuit. And so I often think of my mom like in that little snowsuit sort of waddling around. But going back to saying about grandma with, letting the kids out. If you think that you're having your kids outside of your hair, and I'm using that in quotes because that's something that she would probably have said, out of her hair for 8 hours a day, that's a big chunk of time to cook, to clean, to have some quiet time, to have some downtime, all of that stuff. And obviously she was cooking and cleaning and doing all those things that supported her family of what would that be? 6 people, my grandfather and the 4 kids. But she was not bringing them to hockey practice, swim practice, tutor, extra languages, all of the things that we now as modern parents our want to do.
Right.
And so it's interesting from a historical perspective. And I also know that my grandmother could go to her neighbors and ask for a cup of milk or a cup of sugar if she needed it. And it was just, a very different time.
Right. I mean, even our parents, like the boomers, they get such a bad rap. And I was kind of right there in that, like I was in that kind of bashing them, like, Mom, like you didn't do it. Like all of us had parties and you would go out all the time. And it was like so wild, right? And all of that stuff. But now I find myself looking to my parents and thinking, gosh, some of the stuff that the way you did things was great. Like they gave us more independence and, but then we can't forget that we've also come so far in other areas, right?
Yes.
Like I think that, think about it. Like we just had a workshop the other day and we said to these parents, these children are different because we're raising them differently. So our kids today aren't scared of us, for example, because
yes, absolutely.
We do all this
totally
talking and that's different. I think that is I like that. I think that's better.
It's huge. Oh,
right.
Yeah. Unequivocally. I think we're in a better place right now when it comes to how we respect our children, how our children respect us, how we're raising them more intentionally. I think that's the key, is that parenting nowadays is so much more intentional than it was back then.
Right. And the intentional piece, I think, is part of what weighs on us and makes us better parents, right? It's like the double-edged sword, don't you think?
Yeah, You're right. It is the double-edged sword because it's something we're doing right, but then it's like, oh, but maybe I didn't do enough of that yesterday. Yeah.
And that's the stressor, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what's making us better, but then it's also what's stressing us out.
Well, and I think that like my parents were a little bit better at, giving me independence and stuff. But then I think that they weren't that good at like I feel like I've gotten so good with my teenagers at like kind of choosing my battle. So like if they slam the door when they get out of the car, I think my parents like that would have never they would have freaked out. And a lot of parents say that like, well, I wouldn't have done that when I was a kid. I'm like, yeah, but this is a different time. And I know so much more about what happens to teenagers and their brains and their hormones and all of that. So like if they slam the door, if they do it all the time, okay. But like if they slam the door because they're having a horrible morning, I don't think they need me to freak out on them, right? At that moment. They're obviously having, they are very comfortable with me. That's why they're doing it with me. And so I'm going to let that slide. Now, I don't want my teenager to be disrespectful to me all the time, but I think you have to, I figured that out. I mean, Amy and I figured that out together, which I think is great. Like, I mean, we talk to a lot of parents about stuff like that, super helpful.
You definitely have to pick your battles when it comes to parenting. And like you said, like if you could see that your child is already stressed from school, sports, just life in general, right? You're piling on by correcting them is not going to make anything better.
Right. And we're living in this time when we understand there's so much stress coming at each of us, right? I know for me, like something my parents wouldn't have done with me is tell me, like, look at me and be like, listen, I just made a mistake. I just raised my voice, or I'm having a bad day. Like I shouldn't have talked to you that way and I regret it, right? Like that isn't something that was kind of the norm, at least in my family. And I have wonderful parents. But I'm more likely to do that with my kids because I'm in a different headspace with them where I can say to them, I see you and I see how stressed you are today. Like Emily was saying, whether it's a teenager or even with the little ones, I teach 3-year-olds and I can say to them, I can see that you're really having a hard time with this. This is hard for you. I mean, a lot of times, right, 3-year-olds are coming up to us, me anyway, saying, I miss my mom. And I'm like, I get it. You do. I know that feeling. Like, I get it. I miss it. I miss my mom sometimes too. And I'm still having fun at school, right? And we can talk to children that way now because we have the tools to do it and we understand it works. It helps them become like more well-rounded, more aware of their feelings so they can manage the stress that's around them too, because we know the world they're in. And that's true of teenagers and toddlers. It's everyone in between and us too. And I think being more reflective as parents can really serve us. And like Emily said, like thinking about our own childhood, thinking about how we were raised, how our parents were raised, and that we're in a different time now can really give us that wide range of perspective. Because a lot of times with parents, I do hear what Emily hears, where they say like, well, I would never have said that to my parent. Yeah, of course not. You wouldn't have. But
Yeah.
is it okay now? Like, how do you feel about it as a parent? Right? How does that make you feel? Are you saying you don't like it because your parents didn't like it, or because you as the parent don't like it? Right? So we have that way to talk to each other now that I think can streamline it if we're willing to have the conversations.
That's a good point. Yeah.
No, it definitely. There's so many aspects to modern parenting now that I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, is like being able to take a step back and reflect on our own upbringing and just think of how that impacts our parenting too.
And something about that recently when I talked to parents, I talked to somebody the other day who has littles, and she said, I'm just so scared. Like when stuff happens, that's my first feeling is I get scared. And it could be anything, like the screens, like there's too much of it, the food, the whatever it is. And I said to her, and she said, you always make me feel better. And I said, well, just so you know, I'm still really scared. Amy knows I'm so scared of so many things. So I think I've been trying to work on that and say, like, let's take a step back. Like, what am I scared about? And looking back into your own childhood can be helpful. Like, as kids get way older and kids start to do things like drinking or whatever it is, I think if you go back in time and start thinking about you as a middle schooler and as a high schooler, you're kind of like, okay, because your brain now just goes to all of the worst possible things. But like, how about if it was one kid just taking a sip and daring another kid and they're in their parents' bar? I'm not saying any of that's good, but sometimes if that's how I calm myself down. I call Amy a lot, but that's how I calm myself down to say, maybe the worst thing's not happening. They're just doing what I did. And here I am now. Like, so that always makes me feel better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like everyone's going to be calling Amy now. Amy, your phone's going to be ringing off.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, Amy.
I call Emily just as much. So just so you're aware.
Oh, so many calls. You don't understand, Tara. So many calls.
And sometimes I'm like, can you believe that my kid just said this? Or can you believe, like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, we joke sometimes because, like, the rails, like, and we go off the rails all the time as parents. And we're like, oh, people could see us now. Like, well, we are messing this up, but we always recover. And that's why work and play is the thing. Like, we know it. We get it.
Yeah.
That's a big part of modern parenting also is recovering when we do mess up. And I'm using that in quotes, right? When we make mistakes, because we're human too. This is our first time being humans. This is our first time being parents. And we don't know the right things to do all the time. But the best thing we can do is to acknowledge when we mess up or when we're having a hard day and we snap at our child that had, we snapped at them and it had nothing to do with them, right? Maybe it was a stressor from work. It was a stressor from sitting in traffic or, there could be 1,000 different things. And the best thing we could do is speak to them with respect so that we're on the same level, that they understand where I'm coming from.
Right.
It really makes a difference. And I think going back to what you said, Emily, earlier about having those moments to connect, like it's parenting, we always say can feel like such a heavy lift, but there are such small things you can do that are so simple and easy that can really make a difference in helping you connect with your kid and connect with yourself. Just whether it's sitting down and reading the story with someone, if it's, chatting with them, like putting down your phone, putting down whatever you're doing and just having like a real conversation for 2 minutes, not intense, not about anything important, having a laugh together, right? Or watching a show that they love or letting them show you how they do that on the video game and actually like paying attention to it for a few minutes. Those small things do make parenting today easier because you're connecting with your child. You're gaining confidence the more you feel connected with them and you feel like, oh, that felt good. Like you just built up your confidence a little bit and your kid knows, hey, my parent cares about me and is interested in me. I'm like valuable to them. All of that, like it's small little moments, like you were saying, like they really do
tiny moments
add up to making a huge difference and an impact on your child. So, and on us, like, don't forget, this is not all just, we always say that in our workshops with parents. We're like, by the way, like you are high on the list. Like, of course we all want the best things for our kids. We want to make the right choices. We want to give them the healthy foods. We want to keep them safe. We want them to be kind, all the things. But you have to be on the list too of, are you taking care of yourself? Are you being kind to yourself? Are you seeing your friends? Are you doing things that fills your cup, right? Like, so it's really important to keep ourselves on the list.
Totally.
Preach. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask each of you a question that I ask all of my guests, and I'm really curious to see what your answers are going to be. Emily, I'm going to ask you first. What do you think is the biggest modern mom problem right now?
Oof. I think a lack of like human connection between parents, mostly, probably. Just people connecting. I was thinking of it, just because of even like things like Halloween, of kids walking up to the door of a stranger and saying trick or treat. I mean, it sounds so silly, but we have so little of that. And so I think connecting with parent to parent, parent to teacher. I think there's like this, people are just not like, there's a miscommunication happening. And I really, I'm so passionate. Amy knows I'm so passionate about trying to fix that. And I think a big way that we can do that is getting parents to talk to each other, which Amy and I have learned from our, being best friends. We've learned that through each other, through our friends, that we can do that. So I think would be the biggest problem for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a huge, huge thing. Amy, I'm curious to see what you're going to say.
Yeah. So I absolutely agree with what Emily said. For me, I think one of the biggest problems right now is getting to see each other for who we are right now, right? Yeah. Like I think we say that parenting is messy, and we mean that in every possible way. That it's messy emotionally, it's messy in your home, it's messy in your car, it's messy in your mind, it's messy when you can't sleep at night. Like, it is a big old mess. And being able to look at another parent, or look at a teacher, or look at another person's child who's having a hard time, and say, like, I see you, and I recognize that you're in this too. Like, this is all messy, and being able to really just accept people for who they are. Yeah. I mean, we are constantly, talking to parents about, like, okay, let's stay curious. Let's approach this problem with curiosity. We say it to teachers too. Let's approach this child who's really struggling and is really kind of disrupting your whole school day with curiosity, and see them for who they are right now in this moment. What might be happening? What might we be able to do to support them? And we say that, like, equally to parents and teachers, like, staying curious and seeing people for who they are right now, not for any of the stuff you're bringing to it, not for, any of the complicated big world stuff, but just right now in this moment, what's happening. And so being able to focus on ourselves as individuals and staying curious, I think is a lot of work right now. And it's kind of, we have to lean into that discomfort. And that's a huge hurdle for parents today. It's huge.
Yeah. That way, it really is. That is a huge one, because many times parents, I think to Emily's point earlier, they say, like, oh, don't add anything else onto my plate. Don't I have enough onto my plate? And now you're making me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. They definitely, I mean, I see that a lot in the community when people say, like, don't make me do another thing. Take stuff off my plate.
Right. And Tara, I think that we're all naturally stubborn. And so, like, before you're a parent, you're like, oh no, I'm going to do all this stuff and it's going to be fine. But once you're a parent, like we were talking about apologizing to your child, I thought that was going to be like a piece of cake. It's not, because we all at the core are stubborn and want control. So even when you're like, you're going, you're like, yep, my kid's going to do soccer every day. My kid's going to do this. And you just get so caught up in what you're doing that you're like, hold on. Maybe he doesn't want to go every day. Maybe he's the kind of kid who can't have practice every day. You just get, you just keep going in this thing.
Yeah.
Like
you get into like the
wheel.
Right. I was going to say, it's like the autopilot of parenting, right? You're like, this is what we have to do. This is what needs to be done.
It's the opposite of flexibility. We're not being flexible.
Yeah, no, it's true. One time I heard a great saying when it comes to parenting, and I use it as often as I remember to, and it is step out so that they could step in. Yeah. So the more that you remove yourself from a particular situation, and not remove yourself, but remove the controlling aspect of it. And then that allows them to open up the door to make their own decisions or to figure out things for themselves. So I really like that. Step out so that they could step in.
I like that. Step out, step in. Okay.
Yeah.
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 I love that too. And it's being like open to your kids' open minds, right? Kids have like such open minds and such ways that they see the world. Like if we could be open to how they see it a little bit, and that's part of that stepping back and like not bringing our input, our agenda, our baggage, like just stepping back and letting them be themselves is really empowering. And it makes us feel good. We're like, look at my kid. They're amazing.
Yeah. And stepping back, like,
Awesome.
Amy's good at that. Like stepping back and saying, I see, like, he's like actually did the thing, like they're doing the thing that I never thought, especially when you've got a little one who something's really hard for them for years in a row. And then they're doing it and you're like, wow, this is, and it doesn't matter. It's like they're making a grilled cheese. They're saying hello to someone, whatever. Yeah.
And in those little things, like you were saying before about the meaningful connection, but those little skills make all the difference. They learn how to make a grilled cheese here. They learn how to look someone in the eye. They learn how to not slam the door. All of those things like come together to become like a fully functioning human. And then next thing you know, you turn around and they're, functional and happy and thriving.
That's what we're here for, right? That's what we're trying to do.
So awesome.
Gosh, we are trying, right?
Yeah, there are.
So, Emily, tell us more about Work and Play and where everyone can learn more about it.
Absolutely. So Work and Play, you have to go to our website. We've got tons of great stuff on there and a bunch of blog posts, a lot of blog posts, actually, like a lot of different articles we've written. Our Instagram, we would love you to follow us on Instagram. And Amy, we do a lot of IG Lives lately. And I guess like the main stuff that we've been really working a lot on lately are parent workshops and teacher workshops. And we do a lot of parent coaching, like one-on-one with parents, which is great. And it could be one phone call because you just had a parent teacher conference that you're freaked out about. It could just take one phone call with one of us or both of us to kind of say, okay, this is the game plan, because sometimes you just need that extra person to talk to. And we've got the parenting and the education side of that. We've also been doing these new Work and Play parent dinners where that have been amazing, where a parent hosts a dinner. It could be pizza and wine or whatever you want it to be. And then everybody who comes pays a fee to come. And Amy and I show up and we do a little mini workshop with the parents. And it's been really successful.
I love
really
that
interactive.
idea.
And like the parents can pick the topic. So if like you have a group of parents who are all really, let's say, concerned about tantrums or that kind of behavior, then we send a little homework. We might send them one of our blog posts. We might send them a podcast that we've heard that really speaks to it. So if they want to read about it or learn about it ahead of time, and then we just come and we have really organic, like in the moment, personal conversations, and you're with your friends. So you're building community, but you're also having conversations and looking around and being like, oh, like you're in this too. And sometimes we give ideas and suggestions, but they give it to each other. And they're like, I didn't think of that. I never tried that. Like, I'm going to look at that differently now. So it's been one of the best things we've done.
Yeah.
Lately.
And mom said to me recently, she's like, it felt so good, Emily, because it was like kind of like a night out with my friends, but kind of better because we like got something done, like they got little nuggets of information and, from friends that they could then try and use, and they felt better because other people were experiencing what they were experiencing. The other thing is too, is when everybody goes on our website, Tara, they can sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter comes out every month. So that's a great thing to do too. Am I missing anything, Amy?
Yeah, and then it's just we work with schools, we work with teachers. We like Emily said, we're educators too. So we love to connect with schools. We love to talk to teachers. We really do see parents and teachers as partners. And so we're supporting like those two populations, parents and teachers, are getting so burnt out and so overwhelmed and so stressed. Yeah. And so we are here to support both of them. To work together and also to feel empowered and really good about what they're doing, because both are doing such amazing and important work right now. And so we're here to support teachers and schools and directors and all of it. So we're having great conversations with teachers and with parents.
Oh, that's so important. Thank you so much for the work that you do, because it's so necessary. And I'm not just saying that, but the U.S. Surgeon General is saying that. Right. So thank you so much. And thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having us. This is amazing.
Thanks, Tara.
We love what you're doing.
I love everything you're doing. Literally, like when I heard the name like modern mom props, like Amy and I were like, oh my God, we're so on the same page. That's all we talk about is modern mom problems. So,
You know what? People have a lot of modern mom problems. And so that's
I'm
why
having
we're
a lot.
here.
I had some this morning. I'll probably have some in a few hours. It's just kind of continuous. So
Exactly.
Every
Exactly.
day. It's
I love
messy.
it. It is. Parenting is messy. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Modern Mom Probs. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive in today's problem with me, your host, Tara Clark. Join me next time when I'll be interviewing another great guest and tackling another modern mom problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and a rating. As always, you could head over to Modern Mom Probs on Instagram and give me a follow, or check out my book, Modern Mom Probs, A Survival Guide for 21st Century Mothers, available online wherever books are sold. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, folks.